Program complete. Enter when ready.
Today we're covering Strange New Worlds, Episode 8, directed by Kathleen Kennedy.
No. No.
Oh, no. That's the thing. That's what's going to happen, Will. She's going to get fired from Disney.
No, she's not.
And then she's going to go over and work for Paramount and start doing Star Trek stuff.
No.
You'd love it.
They already got enough grubby little finger people touching it too much. It's like, please don't. Please just leave your grubby little fingers over there. Don't touch nothing.
Yeah. But I want to touch it.
Risk is our business.
Out there. That way.
What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Rock and roll. 6.
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone. Join our Federation of Planets. And reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Okay. Welcome back to another Trek review. Thanks for tuning in this week, because this week we are covering episode 7 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, with the episode entitled The Serene Squall. The Serene Squall first aired June 16th, 2022. It was written by Bo DeMeo and Sarah Tarkoff, and it was directed by Sidney Freeland. The synopsis for The Serene Squall is: while on a dangerous humanitarian mission, the crew of the USS Enterprise stumbles into a harrowing game of leverage with the quadrant's deadliest space pirate.
Were they?
Deadly.
Were they really?
So before we crack on in it, let's ask Caleb, what did he think of the episode?
Yeah, so it was pretty good. It felt like kind of felt like a Star Wars episode, right? Where something stupid happens and the crew's split and you gotta fix it, and
Yeah.
then at the end of the day everything's fine and happy. Yeah, it wasn't bad. There's a lot of parts of it I enjoyed.
Yeah, there's like pockets of it that are pretty decent, and then there's pockets of it that are kind of like,
Yeah. Well, kind of like that comment I just made when you were reading the synopsis was like, they're like, oh, they're like the deadliest pirates in the whole region. And it was like this mishmash group of like people who really have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it was like, I don't know if I'd say that. But yeah. No, it was entertaining.
I think the impression I get is the Angel character took control of the Serene Squall, and those were like a mismatch of people, and they weren't really the captain. They just
right.
Yeah.
Well, plus, like, when she was pretending to be like the Chancellor, she was the one that was saying like, oh yeah, this group of pirates, they're amazing. They're like so like scary and dangerous. I was like,
Right.
She's the captain, so obviously she's
Exactly. We'll read the teaser. Personal log, stardate 1997.9. My last few weeks of service at the Ankashtan Katil retreat have been productive. It is difficult to guide those who once walked a destructive path back to civilized society, helping them purge the emotions that led to thievery, abuse, even murder. Most challenging has been stealing time for Spock and myself. We are making the most of our long-distance endeavor. but I sense in Spock a desire to explore his human side. So, I've been attempting to introduce experimentation into our relationship in an effort to, as humans apparently are fond of saying, spice things up. At the Ankateshtan Katil Katri, a Vulcan criminal rehabilitation center on the third moon of Omicron Lyrae, T'Pring observes the efforts of the people trying to return to logical society, engaging in meditation, art, and making patterns in the sand. Later, while she has some time alone, she contacts her fiancé Spock aboard the USS Enterprise, where she says outright that she has been conducting research on human sex, which causes Spock to momentarily choke on the wine he is drinking in some surprise. T'Pring explains that she has found some books on the topic, such as Tropic of Cancer by Henry Miller, which has a specific idea about sexuality that she finds very male. Fear of Flying by Erica Young, which has a female point of view, and The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson, which she found more interesting. Spock, who is unfamiliar with these books, cuts her off after a moment, saying that perhaps they should consult these texts together. T'Pring agrees, if that was what he wished, but thought that as a full Vulcan, the onus was on her to understand Spock's human half, essentially what made him who he was. He is taken aback by this for a moment, and thanks her for the thoughtful gesture, though concedes it was no substitute for seeing her in person. Just a kind of like a sincere but / comical moment of a Vulcan being like, oh, well, the logical thing is to just like hit this thing head on.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of funny.
I also forgot how much T'Pring is in this, is in season 1.
Yeah, I was interested to see her again. After the last episode, I kind of thought that would be like
Right.
it,
Yeah.
And then this literally opens up with her kind of doing the same thing she was doing.
Yeah, like now you get to actually see her at work, which was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, walking through the ship, Nurse Chapel explains about their guest, Dr. Aspen, who seems very sharp. When it appears Spock is not paying attention, Chapel adds that they have blades for hands for shaving, which a half-listening Spock finds most curious. She finally stops to get his attention and he apologizes as he is distracted. Chapel adds he is also a master of understatement. Spock admits he is having challenges with T'Pring. Chapel is wary given that the last time she gave him a relationship advice, he went overboard. But Spock promises not to do so again, admitting that he needed a friend. He mentions T'Pring's research into human sexuality and believes she is far more interested in exploring his human side than he is. Reconciling his divergent cultures of origin is complex. Chapel tells him that it was fun to be friends with Vulcans because they were honest, and urges him not to be smarter than the truth, as that was what got him into trouble last time. As they resume walking, she gives him a pro tip to pay better attention while she was talking because, ending with the question, because you are completely charming and I am missing it, Spock answers, which Chapel cheerfully calls progress. So more Chapel Spock things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I don't mind. It's just funny that like after the last episode, it like really kind of beat you over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
And now this episode starts up like right back in it. And then like you see towards the end too, there's like even more stuff that's supposed to like, okay, yeah, I get it. She likes him. I got it. Thank you.
Well, they for season 2, they're putting all their cards on the table for it. So
good. They know like T'Pring is like, well, it's a different timeline anyway. No.
Who knows anymore? In Captain Pike's quarters, the captain is serving a meal for Dr. Aspen and several other members of the crew, Spock, Chapel, Una, and Dr. Mbenga. As the doctor is explaining their involvement in running aid missions in that particular sector of space, they have encountered a group of colonists stranded on the edge of non-Federation space for several months. The colony ships lost power 26 days earlier. the colonists were toughing it out, but malnourishment and dehydration were setting in, and their location left them a long way from any help. Pike is confident that they would have their new friends back on their feet in no time. Aspen is grateful and remarks that they can see why Starfleet called him their Boy Scout. Pike protests at the idea, but Una tells him it was actually in his Starfleet file. Aspen is also glad that Starfleet was able to send a ship out that far, as they never relished the idea before. Pike is aware that the sector is akin to the Wild West and asks for a risk assessment. Una brings up reports of an unaffiliated vessel, the Serene Squall, which raids along the border. Aspen explains the Squall was a pirate vessel, which has destroyed a number of their aid missions. Spock believes the Enterprise would be superior to any pirate vessel, but Aspen warns that the pirates were outsiders who were fiercely loyal to one another, a bond more powerful than any weapon. Pike asks the Doctor about their prior experience as a counselor on Starbase 12 and why they changed to humanitarian efforts. Aspen replies that their experience on the border showed them that not everyone who needed help was lucky enough to be in the Federation, so left to run aid missions themselves. Pike considers that a shame, as he felt Starfleet needed more people with their perspective. Just then, Lon calls Pike from the bridge. They had arrived at the location of the colony ships, and he would want to see what they'd found. So the thing that I was thinking about when I watched it here the second time was, if it's, unless like Starfleet doesn't have like fully documented things on this individual,
Yeah.
you know, as we go into it, it's like I know it's like a spoiler for anybody who's listening that hasn't actually watched the episode, but I don't know why you would do that. But
Yeah, right.
She ends up saying there that like they aren't Dr. Aspen and that they just assumed their identity and then like deposited Dr. Aspen on like a planet.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, why wouldn't La'an or Captain Pike or Una like have like records and be like, oh, this person looks nothing like the person on record?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's like, because it says here, they end up saying that they were a counselor on Starbase 12. So that's like a Federation run thing.
Yeah.
So it's not like some random outpost.
So they would have like regulations and like ranking and picture ID and all that stuff. Yeah.
They'd have all that stuff. They would have pictures of this person. So unless we're led to believe that this angel person like physically changed their appearance, which is possible.
Yeah.
It's like there must not have been a picture of the original Dr. Aspen. Like
Nope.
So when you were watching it, did you think that this Dr. Aspen was a bad person, or did you just
I didn't think that she was a bad guy in this episode until like you see the pirate crew for the first time, and they all have the same earrings all the way around their ear, and then like you really kind of focused on like her earrings and her like eye tattoo.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's definitely a pirate.
Okay.
But you know what I really liked in the scene that I thought was funny too was like Pike being like called the Boy Scout.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
It was.
And then he's like, I'm not, that's not even close to being true. And they're like, it's actually in your file. Your Starfleet, even the Starfleet calls him the Boy Scout. And I like the callback. There's a callback later on when he does something. He's breaking rules, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's not what a Boy Scout would do, right?" That's it's like he's almost doing it like just to not be.
Yeah,
the great like the
trying to get away from it. Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
That's true. Okay, the colony ships appear to have been completely destroyed. Their debris scattered across space. Lon reports signs of 2 of the 3 ships, and Ortegas detects no life signs. Aspen wonders if the survivors escaped to the remaining ship. Spock is finding no sign of it. but it is detecting an unidentified warp signature, which Pike suspects might have been the pirates. Aspen doesn't believe the colonists had anything worth stealing, but La'an brings up the possibility that they were after the colonists themselves, as slavery was upsettingly common outside Federation space. Pike sees the problem. If La'an is right, the pirates may have already retreated across the border. Spock points out that entering non-Federation space required approval from Starfleet Command, and a request from their current position would take 2 days, as they were too far from the Federation's subspace relay network to provide rapid communication. To put it simply, if we head in, we would be on our own, he warns. Pike has him send the request, and orders are taken to plot a course, and to drop subspace buoys to maintain communication. The captain is well aware the buoys would be their only connection to civilization, but he is not willing to wait to keep people from the auction block, and promises Aspen he will find the colonists. And the intro begins. Space. I just found out recently, I saw him in an interview, he was, before the strike, he was talking about how the day he recorded at his home the intro, they had the voiceover for that, and he was working with he said it was him, a team of guys in New York and a team of guys in Los Angeles were on a conference call Zoom thing, and they were working at, and he would say the line, and they would tell him when to pause more here, do this here. And he was like, man, let's take a moment and just realize that this is going to change our professional careers for the rest of our lives. We're doing something that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then one of the other guys said to him, it's like, well, you just make sure you're not trying to outdo Shatner, right? Don't try to do that, because you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then Anson Mount laughs in the interview, and he goes, yeah. And he goes, guess what day I was recording the voiceover? And the interviewer, or Una, what's her name? Rebecca Romaine is with her, and they're like, what happened? He goes, yeah, William Shatner was going into space.
Oh my God, that's funny.
On this, it's just oh, okay, yeah, you're never gonna outdo Shatner.
Yeah. That's really funny.
It was really funny.
I can't speak too much, because I haven't watched a lot of the original series, but from what I've seen, I like Pike more.
So Pike's is more somber and more serious sounding.
Yeah. Kirk's
is more adventurous, because it's not copying anything. It's the first time you're ever hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's supposed to be more explaining what the show is. It's more hey, so the show is about this. It's about space, the final frontier.
Yeah.
It's that's what it is. But Patrick Stewart's is probably the one that's the most down the middle between the two of them, between Anson Mount and William Shatner. He kind of does his reading is very much you hear the captain in his voice, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. And it's a thing too, where the original series, it's such an older series too. It's trying to be something different. So a lot of times I think Shatner is kind of over the top. But
and it is.
That's kind of, but that's kind of how it was back then, right? I mean, you had cowboys and Indians shooting each other on the other station, and that was over the top,
Yeah.
So it's just how it was. But
his 6 shooters and 20 shooters, so it's always, the arrows hit him in the heart, but it's just above the heart, type of thing.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Hits him right in the sheriff badge,
Yeah. Ooh. Okay, Spock approaches Aspen's quarters to find loud, lively music playing inside. With a quirked eyebrow, he presses the door chime and is greeted by the counselor. He informs them that Pike has requested their presence on the bridge. In the turbo lift, Aspen explains that they used to club hop during their days at Starfleet Academy to work out stress. Spock agrees that the current situation would include anxiety, and Aspen adds a bit of guilt as well, believing that they should have arrived sooner. Spock considers self-blame to be counterproductive and also induces the anxiety they're trying to avoid. Aspen retorts that not all of them have undergone Kolnar to purge emotion. Their familiarity with the Vulcan ritual surprises Spock, and Aspen explains that they had worked with Vulcans before. Aspen admits to never really understanding the point of Kolnar. Vulcans naturally had emotions, so why try to erase them? Spock believes Kolnar offered clarity, the ability to see oneself without bias, and admits to looking forward to his. So she kind of peels back the layer of like, oh, you know a little bit more about Vulcans than I would assume you would.
Yeah, it's almost like she knows one. Wouldn't that be crazy if they were like related?
The thing I like too is this is a little wink and a nod to a Star Trek movie. Him being like, and I'm looking forward to my Kolnar is like, because we all know, even though this is now a different timeline, but previous before this, you know, you weren't really sure. Spock, like there's a scene where he's trying to have he's going through Kolnar. So it's like a big
That's
thing.
cool.
Yeah. As they arrive on the bridge, Pike explains that a distress call had been detected in an asteroid field, asking if the colonists had the ability to send one, even without their ships. Aspen concedes it would be possible, but also warns that pirates have set ambushes by cloning ship signals. Spock had mentioned that very possibility to the captain, who reminded him that Starfleet regulations required them to investigate any distress signal. Pike orders yellow alert and has Ortegas bring them in closer. The navigator cheerfully asks, how close? First date or third date? Blind date, Pike answers, which Ortegas takes to mean proceed with caution. As they approach, Spock reports the signal growing stronger and has yet to detect a ship of any kind. Just as the Enterprise bumps into one of the larger asteroids, an energy net activates around the ship. Pike orders red alert and full stop. Spock reports the net is formed from multiple steroids equipped with high-energy electromagnetic reflectors and recommends they do not cross one of the beams. In the best-case scenario, the energy beam would disable the ship. At worst, kaboom, as Ortegas puts it. La'an asks about weapons, and Spock considers it unwise to attempt to disable the net. If one went down, it could trigger a cascade effect of detonations, which could also destroy the ship. Una suggests trying to push them to make space, but Spock warns it could trigger the same cascade. The net appears to be shrinking in on them. Looking at the readings, Aspen sees a potential solution. If each asteroid had a reflector, that meant the further they were from the source, the signal would degrade, and whichever of the asteroids is emitting the highest amount of energy was likely the source of the beams. Spock scans the electromagnetic signatures of the asteroids and appears to find one of the highest, then shortly afterward, a second. Pike asks which one to shoot. Spock replies he cannot determine that with certainty, but Pike urges him to go with his gut. If they didn't fire on one, the net's contraction would prevent them from firing on any. Aspen urges him to make a choice, and after a moment, he finally does. It proves to be the right one, disabling the entire net. I saw how much you enjoyed Ortegas. I saw that you really enjoyed that when I was reading.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty funny and witty, you know.
Yeah, smart.
I like his reply of the blind date thing made me chuckle, but I think a lot of times it's just because I like Pike.
You like Pike, yeah.
Because it's like, hey, why don't you just do what you're told? And not everything has to be a joke, you know.
Yeah.
Like every time somebody says something, she's always like, "Oh, what about this?" It's like, yeah, why don't you just push forward on the controls? How about that? Why don't you just drive the ship?
Nope. I got to say something smart and witty first. Yep.
It just like, it would be fine once in a while, but it's just like every single time it just kind of gets old,
It goes from like it's that they're like that she could be like the comedic relief, and it's like she sometimes says something kind of zany or funny or
Yeah.
offbeat, but it's like every time she opens her mouth, she's saying something kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, 1 or 2 in the episode is fine, but like getting on like 8 or 9, you're like, okay, all right. It's like
Yeah, because the episode even kind of opens where they're talking about pirates, and she's like, "Oh, fun. Pirates. I like pirates."
right.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Like she has to be like the kid in the room,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why it's annoying, because like that's how I feel. Like she's like the kid that always has to say something about everything.
Yeah. Has to get the last word and say be the last one to talk. Yeah.
But even like, like even people, like kids do it, but like adults do it too, where like you would be talking to somebody and then
Mhm.
they'll come in like in the middle of the conversation and be like, "What's that? Who said that?
Oh gosh.
What's going on with that?"
Oh gosh.
And you're
Why
like,
do we as humans hate that? Because that is like one of the things that like all of us hate.
it's a big pet peeve. It's just I don't know. Yeah, why do we hate that? I don't know.
It's rough. It's rough, man, because it's like one of the few things that I think everyone hates when you're not talking to this person and somebody else comes in. They're like, "What? Who?"
Who said that?
You're like,
It's like, well, I'm not going to retell the entire story. I've been talking about this for 10 minutes. Somebody else,
yeah, you just walked up.
Yeah. When was that? It is
Yeah,
true. Humans do hate that.
it's basically like calling attention to eavesdropping, and it's like we try not to eavesdrop as people, but sometimes you just do naturally because your brain can't turn off the noise, like the voice.
Exactly.
So you
Yeah.
just unfortunately eavesdrop. So I think a person just coming up and being like, "What?" is basically like giving attention to like, oh, they have been eavesdropping this whole time, or at least a part of
Yeah.
the time. And you're like, it makes you upset because you're like, well, you wish nobody is eavesdropping it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is funny. But yeah, that's how she makes me feel sometimes.
Yeah. I understand.
Like almost it's like it's a extreme, but it's almost to the point where like if like Pike was having like a captain's meeting in a private room and she walked by, she'd like pop in and be like, "Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, Captain. That's kind of stupid."
Yeah. It's okay. There's always one. That's the one thing you'll find out. There's always one in a series that you'll just kind of like, okay.
That's good.
Okay. As the Enterprise proceeds, a small shuttle anchored on one of the asteroids detaches and begins to follow. Meanwhile, Spock is in his quarters consulting the computer readings of the asteroid field when Aspen comes down. When he asks how could he help them, they reply that they had come to ask him that question. Spock invites them to help with his scans of the asteroid field to figure out the Serene Squall's tactics. But Aspen points out that when Pike told him to go with his gut, they believed Spock had looked like he was about to have a heart attack. From their long service together, Spock knows Pike is comfortable with hunches, but to Spock, it felt uncomfortably like guessing. He considers guesses to be derived from incomplete premises, and he considers that illogical. Aspen points out his human ancestry, but Spock dismisses that as merely genetics, as he was born and raised on Vulcan, which Aspen similarly dismisses as geography. They explain that all species put things into boxes. People were either this or that. Sometimes people acted to other people's expectations, but that was not necessarily who they were as a person. Spock thinks they are suggesting he tried to balance his human and Vulcan natures, but they replied that perhaps he was neither, something Spock considers nonsensical. If I am not human or Vulcan, what am I? Aspen replies that it was not their question to answer before apologizing for crossing boundaries, saying that they had worked with a few Vulcans before. They then tell him not to waste his time with the asteroid field, as the trap had not been set by the Serene Squall. If it had, they would be dead already. So it's like knowing what comes ahead and looking at this, it's like it's very much the other person, her boyfriend or fiance or whatever, trying to learn as much about Spock as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, you know it's interesting though is like I did kind of enjoy that conversation between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is this thing where, you know, Spock sometimes gets like wedged into these like situations, and it's like he doesn't know whether or not he's choosing like his Vulcan side or his human side.
Right.
It's funny that he still has like such a conundrum with that decision, even though he saw that like just going with his gut like correctly like fix the situation.
Yeah.
And he's still like haunted by the fact that he didn't choose logic.
Right.
Like, yeah, but it obviously like your gut is better than your brain then because it works.
Right. It's an interesting thing because they keep posing in this show, they keep posing like, is what makes Spock so great is that he's half human, or is it because he's half Vulcan? It's like what, or is it because it's both? And they keep posing this question over and over again.
Yeah.
On the bridge, Ortegas continues to navigate through the asteroid field. Pike knows it was not easy without mapping relays, offering to let Ensign Sue take over if needed. But Ortegas is fine with steering manually, as it felt like she and the ship were in a deep conversation, like a third date. Earning a chuckle from the captain. The Enterprise then arrives at the location of another ship, which La'an identifies as the third colonial ship. Spock detects 200 life signs sealed in the cargo hold and 30 more through the ship. Aspen recalls the three ships had a complement of about 200. Una speculates the Squall hijacked the ship and left a boarding party aboard to keep their prisoners. Pike asks if the ship had detected them, and La'an reports they have not. The Enterprise was still out of their range. Pike decides to use the element of surprise while they still had it, and has Una and La'an accompany him to the transporter room. It's a lot of stuff where they just keep taking things at face value. You know, they're like, oh, well, yeah, here it is.
Yeah, and then, you know, it's funny to be like going along with what we just were talking about with like logic and guts.
Yeah.
It seems like Spock using his gut like helped them, but then everybody else using logic, like looking at computers and seeing like life signs on the board, like all that stuff was all faked. So it's almost like logic got them in trouble because they're relying on their computers and their scanners like too much instead of just like going with your like how you feel about the situation. Like obviously there's something not right with the situation.
Okay, so the La'an and the landing party are suited up in tactical gear, and a moment later, Pike enters, similarly attired. Una points out how he seemed to be playing fast and loose with the rules that day, entering non-Federation space and heading up away missions. Who? Me? The Boy Scout? Pike jokes as he steps onto the transporter pad and tells La'an to watch her six. Una beams them into the cargo bay, where they fan out to search for the colonists. They discover cages with a device that appeared to be giving off false readings. Pike calls the ship and reports no colonists. Una immediately prepares to bring the landing party back, but the signal is soon lost. Ensign Sankar is at communication, reports comms are jammed. Below decks, Chappell suddenly hears shouting, followed by weapons fire, and she immediately climbs into a Jeffries tube. Spock reports multiple transport signals detected the moment they beamed the landing party onto the colony ship, and several of them are on their way to the bridge. Una orders battle stations and instructs the computer to initiate security protocol Omega Beta 9, locking down the ship's systems. One of the pirates tosses a flashbang grenade from the turbo lift. Una and Ortegas immediately draw phasers and engage the pirates, while Spock protects Aspen by engaging in hand-to-hand with the attackers, disabling some with a Vulcan neck pinch. Both Una and Ortegas take glancing hits, while Aspen takes a shot to the shoulder, knocking Spock out of the line of fire and into the turbolift. Spock has a turbolift take them to Deck 4, shooting one of the pirates with a recovered weapon as the turbolift closes.
Yeah,
It's
that was pretty fun.
Gets pretty spicy pretty fast.
I like that we got to see him use Vulcan
Yeah.
neck pinch a few times.
Yeah. Also, him just like whipping guys.
Yeah, I mean, he bashed that guy's face in and then threw him across the room. I was like, no, that's human. That's the human side of Spock.
Yeah. What did you think of? Did you like seeing the Jeffries tube? That's like the first time you see it. It's when Chapel turns and she goes up the thing and there's like red and yellow pipes and she's going up the ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a Jeffries tube, which is like
Yeah,
a
that was kind of cool.
famous Star Trek thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Where does it lead to? Just
It's like little gaps in the ship. They're like little access ports. It's basically like if the turbo lifts are down, you can use these tubes to like get through the ship.
yeah, okay.
Which is why
that's kinda
Spock takes it later, and that's why she's
Yeah.
taking it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have a backup.
I don't know if in an Enterprise if they have anything like that.
I remember them going up like ladders with like hatches that opened,
Okay.
like to go through like parts of the ship.
Okay. Yeah.
And they always spent a lot of time in like the back of the ship, like hunkered down from like radiation in like the back like engine compartment almost.
Okay. Yeah. They were like vertical. Yeah.
Yeah. But it seems like Archer was always going up some ladder and opening some vent port, trying to like get around somebody.
That's right. I remember now. Yeah.
Because Travis used to hang out up there too. Remember, he would go up the ladder and
I
hang
do
out in that,
now,
like
yeah.
the zero G part of the ship.
Yeah. So it says in universe, Jeffrey tubes are probably named in honor of the 22nd century Starfleet engineer W.M. Jeffries. But in reality, this character was named after Matt Jeffries, who is the designer of the original Enterprise and the art director of the original series. So it was originally an in-joke already used during production of the original series. It only came to be canonically mentioned on a number of occasions in the later Next Generation television series. So like in the original series, you just see this thing. They show it a lot in the show. And on set, they were calling it Jeffries tubes because Matt Jeffries was designing the bridge, like designing the set and everything. And then in honor of the man who made that stuff in Next Generation, they just call it Jeffrey tubes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think about that too. Like designing, like drawing a spaceship is like one thing.
Right.
And like, yeah, that looks cool. But then to like draw and like design the inside, like how it would look.
Yeah.
So like you draw this big saucer, but now like every time you show the inside, like it's got to be round. Like it's got to make sense, like how rooms work, how like the bridge is set.
Yeah, you can't just have it be like just like, oh well, it's a hallway and here's a door. It's like, well, where does that door lead and what is
Yeah, because even the rooms have to be like kind of curved, you know, they got to have that slight curve.
Yeah.
Because you always see like people running down the hallway and it's like this round like corridor.
Yeah.
Because it kind of curves, you know, and it's such a big saucer that it's not going to be like a severe angle, but it's gonna have a little bit of a turn to it, you know.
Yeah. When we this fall, I get you up to Ticonderoga, you when you see it, you'll be like, oh dude, because it's like it's so weird. Because when you'll eventually see some episodes back to back, you'll be like, oh, okay, whatever. But then when you go to stand it in person, you're just like, the optical illusion of what they do with the set, you're like, oh, I get it. And they literally just film from like 4 different angles and it's the same
Yeah.
exact thing, but you don't realize that because they just change like a couple things on the wall. And
Yeah.
then it's just like, oh, well, now it's a different part of the ship, or they film from the other side of the hallway and now it looks completely different type of thing. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
it's cool. Yeah, you'll like it once I get you up there.
Yeah. I was really looking this time too. I remember you telling me that like how they film like Mandalorian has that screen.
Oh yeah,
And you were saying like they do that with the engine room.
yeah.
And yeah, I was really paying attention this time. And it's really, I mean, it's crazy that that's a screen, like the
That's a
whole like
screen,
depth of the engine, like way in the back.
Yeah.
So they're at like this little like computer comm, and it's like this whole giant like
It goes back way back.
it's a lot different than when Tucker like had to go up and actually like turn the thing on the.
Yeah.
Now they're just like, oh, looks like that warp core way down there is okay.
Yeah.
That's like-
Yeah. Okay, aboard the ship, Pike and the landing party are immediately surrounded by the pirate crew. Their leader, a hulking, wild-haired Orion named Remy, looks slightly amused as he approaches Pike, looking over his gear and patting the captain on the cheek. "Welcome to the Serene Squall," he says, chuckling. Armed, Spock walks ahead of Aspen, guiding them to sickbay. The pirates have rounded up the bridge crew and are taking them to the transporter room. Una sees Spock and gives a slight shake of her head as he is taken away. Aspen warns they would get caught if they didn't find a place to hide, and Spock guides them up into a Jeffries tube. I meant to say when we were reading it, I meant to say, like, how did you feel about this Remy guy's just appearance?
Yeah.
Did you like it or dislike it? Or didn't just...
Which one was Remy?
Remy is the like bearded Orion guy. He's like the
Yeah.
main guy that Pike's talking to.
Yeah, right. So they get captured, and then they do that thing where like they show his feet walking through like that water puddle on the ship.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, this guy's bad because like he doesn't even care about his boots. Like that's how you know this guy's.
Right.
Yeah, he just kind of showed up. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have any feelings about him just
Okay. Because
being there.
I'm partially like when they show like the Big Show and Enterprise and a couple other male Orions, they're like big, bulky, like muscular things, and they have like metal plates on their head and they look really scary. And then this guy shows up and he's like kind of overweight. He's got like a weird hairdo.
Yeah, that's true. I guess at first I didn't really connect the dots like that he was an Orion.
Right.
I just assumed he was just a green guy.
Yeah.
Kind of at first, like I was like, I was like, oh, he's kind of green like an Orion, but yeah, like you said, like they're big guys.
So it was just kind of
maybe-
strange. It was just
Maybe he's a runt. He's a runt of the litter.
maybe that's why he's a pirate. I don't dislike the guy. It just was like it was just a little like shocking. It's mainly just his hair. I guess I don't really care about his stats.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like that weird ponytail curly mullet thing that he's got going on.
Yeah, and his full beard.
Yeah. Okay, aboard the Squall, Pike is being interrogated by Remy and the crew, who are attempting to gain the access codes to disable the ship's lockdown. He finds Pike's defiant captain drama to be sad, given that the Squall has seized the Enterprise and caged the crew. The female pirate standing behind him says that they were wasting their time. So she's the smart one, Pike says sarcastically. Remy is amused. Handsome and witty, aren't you, Achama? He says. As he tosses a bowl of concoction, Pike finds fowl into his face, asking if they actually ate it. Remy explains it was an Orion specialty, and the crew loved it. The 3 crew around him look somewhat non-committal to that idea. Pike offers to show them what real food tasted like if the pirates saw that his crew got their own food and water, offering to discuss the command codes over dinner. Remy is not buying it, threatening to airlock the crew if he didn't give them what they wanted. The female pirate again speaks up, mentioning that they were far from Federation space and the Enterprise wasn't going anywhere. Besides, she adds, they could use a good meal. Remy asks what was wrong with his cooking before finally agreeing to pamper the Enterprise crew, adding that he hoped Pike could cook, as his crew's lives depended on it. Pike looks at his captors and asks to be taken to the ship's kitchen. It's pretty funny that him getting like nasty food thrown in his face and him being like kind of doing the James Bond thing where he's like, oh, I love it. Right? Like just not caring that he's getting punched in the face and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Turns into him actually making food for the crew.
Yeah. Actually, like had a benefit.
Yeah.
It's almost like he took more offense to like them eating like Orion food more so than them taking his ship. Like that was more of an insult, like feeding his crew like disgusting stuff because he's such a good chef. I liked it. I liked that they actually kind of made like work that into an episode where it wasn't just like, oh yeah, no, he's a captain. He likes to cook and he likes to have people to his quarters for like a meal, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was kind of good.
Yeah. Do you think, I was going to ask you, do you think that him being so nonchalant about it is because he knows he doesn't die?
Yeah, I had that thought, right?
Yeah.
Because like, how do you not always think about that, you know? Think like once he saw the pirates and how they all kind of like reacted to each other, I think he kind of knew like, okay, these guys are not serious about anything. Like these guys are not threatening, you know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I like him in this scene though. I like how like calm and like collected he is.
Yeah, oh yeah. He's super, super not worried about anything in this scene, other than having food thrown in his face. Like that was the most upsetting.
He's like, "You actually eat this crap?" I like that too because then he agrees, and then he goes, "Kitchen? Like, where's the kitchen? Like, let's get this show on the road." You know?
Yeah,
because like he's hungry too.
yeah.
Also, how funny is it too that like this is about like food and cooking, and the main pirate guy's name is Remy, and that's like the rat from Ratatouille.
That's true. I didn't even think about that. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That is really funny. I didn't even think about that. That's funny.
But it's also that funny moment, like that's like a classic Star Trek or Star Wars thing where he's like, the crew loves my cooking, and they're all like, I don't know about that. It's kind of like this comedic moment, like in the midst of like interrogation, you know. There's another reveal at the end that I really like. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like a funny thing.
Yeah. Back on the Enterprise, Chample makes her way out of the Jeffries tube and accesses a computer terminal trying to send a distress call, but the communications are offline due to the lockdown. She is then caught by two pirates, and she pleads with them not to hurt her as she is just a nurse. One of them tells her to drop her weapons, but she replies she doesn't have any. However, she does have a hypo spray in her sleeve. As one of them approaches, she uses the hypo to incapacitate him, then tackles the other before he can chew. The other pirate scrambles for his weapon while Chample goes for the hypo. She is faster and is able to knock out the second pirate. She scurries back into hiding when she hears a door open, heralding others. The thing I like about this is that she can, one, she's holding her own.
Yeah.
And two, like, it's cool. We always like when characters play to their specialty, right? Like, she's not a fighter per se, so using a hyper spray is cooler seeing her use that than a phaser.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it would be kind of ridiculous if she like knocked the guy and like took control of his gun and
right.
It's like
But the thing I was thinking about too is like that she go like they don't show her getting the hypo spray or having the hypo spray. And also if she did have the hypo spray, like why does she have like a massive sedative essentially like in it? Like where was she going? The other thing is too, and I know it has nothing to do with her character, and I didn't even notice the first time I watched it, is you can see her name is Jess Bush. you can see like all of her like finger tattoos and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting, not like in the sense of Chapel having tattoos. Like, I don't really care about that, but it was more interesting that they, as a production crew, decided we're not going to put makeup over her hands and stuff. Like, we're going to leave her tattooed, which was an interesting decision.
Yeah, I know. It's the first time I noticed it too.
Yeah, because like Nurse Chapel in the original series, like, of course she doesn't have like hand tattoos and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
just an interesting decision.
Well, that's kind of like the thing I think about too, is like what they are currently doing. It's like, why would they write all this stuff into the first season to like tie into the original, and then by season 2 they're like, no, scrap it all. You know what I mean? Like they they bring in, like, specifically they write in like T'Pring and Chapel and all this like stuff from the original series, and they make sure it's like canon in the first season, and then like they just like went a totally different direction.
I think the easiest thing to do is, I think they were getting enough flack from the fans when they were like, this thing, and the fans were like, yeah, but that doesn't really happen. Like, you're introducing things that like the original series doesn't comment on, or doesn't make sense, or doesn't like, all of a sudden moving forward, it's like all the stuff that they're setting up, like you go forward, it'll end up feeling like a lot of the characters are cold, and like they're disinterested in each other, because like Spock and Uhura and Chapel, like they're just very plain and very non-interested in one another beyond like crewmates. But here in the series, you're like, well, they're best friends, and they hang out and they laugh and have drinks together and they share meals together. It's like,
but I can let all that go. I can let all that go because I just assume that, like, yeah, they've been serving on the Enterprise for 60 years. Like, they're just like done, you know. But
the reality is it's only been like 5 years.
Well, they're just tired. I mean, they got chased by the Gorn, you know. They got.
So I think what they just did was, I think honestly it was a smart thing for them to do. It just hurts our thing because we were watching it chronologically, but I think it was a smart thing to do because it allows them to then go forward and just kind of do what they want. Try to stay within the path that's laid out, but if they do things that are a little over the edge or a little in the gray area, fans won't get quite upset, because it's like, well, technically it's a new timeline, so it's fine. It's fine that this person says this, or this person shows up and does this thing. Like, it's fine. Yeah. I think it got them. They were painting themselves into a corner, and then they were like, oh man, what do we do? And then they were just like, there is no corner. And the fans were like, all right, whatever. Pike is serving his own concoction to the crew, who seems to enjoy it. Remy judges it edible, and Pike points out the rest of the crew seem to like it. He thinks it wouldn't hurt for enemies to give each other compliments, and takes Remy, for example. He seems too intelligent to take much lip from his crew. Remy is confident that they know who's in charge, and he thinks instead of focusing on him, Pike should worry about what will happen to his own crew. Pike beckons him closer, speaking in confidence. He knows the Federation is willing to ignore what goes on outside their space, but hijacking the Federation flagship will lead to Starfleet hunting them down. Remy doesn't seem bothered, as by the time Starfleet caught up to them, they would have sold the Enterprise, and there were plenty in the quadrant who would pay high price for it. Pike concedes that might be true, but would the buyer also want the Federation coming after them? Remy adds that the ship wasn't all they had to sell, wondering what the Klingons would pay for Federation slave labor. The female pirate looks askant at him on hearing that, but says nothing. Pike adds that people like Remy typically knew not to get into deals with the Klingons because they wouldn't get out alive. Remy replies that he knew what he was doing. As he leaves, Pike smiles to himself.
Yeah, what a bad idea that is to get involved with the Klingons.
Just be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and do this thing. They're like, nah, we'll just kill you. We'll kill you, and then we'll take the ship.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be fine. And then we'll sell it, even though like that ship will be immediately marked as stolen property of the Federation. You'd be hunted for the rest of your life.
We don't care because we like the challenge.
No. We're the best pirates there's ever been out in these parts of space. That's what our captain says.
That is what it says.
I'm an idiot.
Spock and Aspen have reached sickbay, where Spock applies a hypospray to treat Aspen's wound. He considers it fortunate the pirates' weapons were set for stun, as the crew were clearly wanted alive. Entering Mbenga's office, Spock sees that Una's security lockdown is still in place, but the pirates have claimed the ship's systems. Aspen asks about the escape pods, but Spock is adamant that the ship must be retaken rather than left in pirate hands. Aspen firmly believes they could not risk being captured by these people, which Spock picks up on, deducing that the counselor has a more personal connection to their adversaries than previously disclosed. Aspen admits their husband, who was Vulcan, had led one of the aid missions to the region where the Squall attacked his transport. He had fought back and lost. They had left Starfleet because of it, lamenting that their husband had been so concerned about being perceived as too emotional, and that logic had probably told him to fight back, and wishing he had allowed himself to be scared. Spock retrieves a Starfleet supply case with a pair of phasers and communicators, saying that the Jeffrey tubes would take them to engineering, and from there, he could override the security lockdown and send a distress signal. He hands one of the phasers to Aspen, who protests they were not a fighter. Spock considers that based on what they just told him, that assertion was incorrect. So before we get into like the whole thing of this is kind of when I was originally watching the episode was like, this person now kind of feels like they're not.
Yeah.
It was a little too heavy-handed, and it's okay, but it was like it was a thing where they keep her like, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, no, don't do that, and then has this other backup story about why they're connected to the pirates, and then when he hands them the phaser, they're like, no, I can't take that. Are you sure? Like, okay, yeah,
I've never used the phaser.
yeah.
My husband was a Vulcan.
Yeah.
And he was like fighting, but didn't want to fight, but like he had to.
He had to.
Now he's dead.
He's dead. The thing I did like, maybe you caught on to it too. So when they're on the bed, they're on the med bed, and he's giving them the hypo spray, and they're talking. You can hear the little like bloop, bloop, which is like the heartbeat monitor.
Oh.
And then Spock goes into Mbenga's office, and Aspen is still on the table, and it's going bloop. And then when they get off the table, it stops. And it's like just background noise, and it's just a nice little beat that once they're not on the thing, like their readings are not being monitored once they're off.
That's kind of cool.
It was a cool little thing. I doubt I'll be able to find like the actual audio of it because it'll probably get copyright claimed. But if I can, I'll put it down below.
You know what's funny is I remember hearing that, but I was under the assumption it was like a security alert, like for the hospital room, because I don't remember hearing it stop when they got off the bed.
I think to be fair, it's like a thing where this is heavily playing off of the original series, so a lot of stuff that like you haven't seen yet. I think you're gonna really like it going forward to the original series. You're gonna be like, oh man, that's this thing in Strange New Worlds.
Oh, okay.
For everybody else, it's hey, that's that thing from the original series, but for you, it'll be hey, it's that thing from Strange New Worlds. So it'll be cool. It'll be fun to see it. Like
that is kind of cool.
Which is why I like doing it this way again, because like when we watch it and they introduce characters, you're like, yeah, but in Enterprise, this thing. So it's nice. That's how I want it to be. Okay, back on the Squall, Pike is tossed into the cage with the crew, and Benga examines him with his med kit and gives the captain the good news that his head was not scrambled. Pike offers more good news, that he's convinced their captors to sell them to the Klingons. Ortegas then asks if Mbenga's equipment was broken, But Pike explains Remy thinks selling them to the Klingons is a good idea, but the crew is not fond of the idea. Una realizes what Pike is doing, mentioning Alpha Braga 4. When Lon asks what that is, Una explains that Pike is inciting the pirate crew to mutiny.
Yeah.
So I have two things about this. One is the thing that partially annoys me is the fact that I don't know if I like really anything in any media that when they do it, I don't know if I like the random callbacks that you haven't seen. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because like you'll watch a movie and it'll be like they're breaking into the bank and he's like, oh man, the drill bit broke and we can't get into the doors. And it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
this is
Just like the Philadelphia mission, huh?
Exactly. And just like Avengers, they're shooting the aliens. Boom, boom. She goes, huh, this is just like Budapest. And he's like, this is nothing like Budapest.
Yeah.
And
You and I
ends
have
up
a very
being-
different memory of Budapest.
Right. And then that ends up being when they show the memory of Budapest, it just shows that Black Widow is an insane person that she thinks blowing up a child and a man is like aliens invading. It's the same thing.
Oh man, I forgot that they even showed what Budapest was.
So
Yeah,
it just
right.
makes Black Widow look absolutely out of her mind in that
Yeah,
scene.
she's nuts. Nutty professor. Yeah.
And it makes Hawkeye be like, you clearly have a different memory
You're
of what that
sick. It's funny, I was the one that was controlled by Loki. That's interesting.
Right. So I don't know. I get it. It's fine, and I know it's a tropey thing that they do, but I honestly don't think I like it in anything. I don't think it's ever happened in a movie or TV series, and I'm like, nice. I'm always just like,
Yeah, that's true.
I'd rather them be like them have shown the episode where they had a mutiny, and they're going to be like, well, this is just like that episode. That's what I'd rather them call back to. That's something I haven't seen. Because then it sounds like a throwaway thing.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it is kind of one of those things.
Yeah. But the thing I did like in the scene that made me laugh, I actually out loud laughed. It was the one time something Ortega said made me that she didn't make me laugh, but the person's rebuttal made me laugh. So
Yeah.
Mbenga scans Pike and he's like, well, good news, Captain. Your brain isn't scrambled. And then he's like, okay, blah, blah, Klingon. We're going to get sold to the Klingons. And then Ortega says like, is that thing broken? And then Mbenga goes like, I don't know. Let me check again. And he goes like, he goes to scan Pike again.
Yeah, I did like that.
That made me laugh.
Your brains aren't scrambled. And he's like, yeah, well, good news. I got us sold to the Klingons. Like, I think your equipment's broken, Doctor. Because that doesn't sound good at all. Yeah, I did like that. I thought that was funny.
That was good. Spock and Aspen reach engineering where they find several unconscious pirates and someone attempting to access the computer. They soon discover Chapel, who is relieved to see them. Spock asks about her handiwork, and Chapel notes his surprise. She has been trying to send a distress signal, but the security lockdown isn't allowing it. Spock uses his command codes to lift the lockdown and transfer control to engineering. He scans for the squall. Well, he has Chapel work on communications and Aspen attend to the transporters. But the control is soon routed back to the bridge for all systems. And Aspen holds both their and Spock's phasers, pointing at them. They identify themselves as Captain Angel, and the Serene Squall was their ship. And now,
Yeah.
so was the Enterprise.
Bum, bum, bum. Who could have seen it coming?
Not this guy, no.
Not this guy.
So yeah, so we're now halfway. So write in the comments below, because we laughed good about it. Right, Dr. Mbenga down below in the comments to let us know you got this far.
Say, oh, halfway there.
Don't write Bon Jovi. Don't write Bon
No,
Jovi.
don't.
If you write
Or
Bon
write-
Jovi, I'll know.
Yeah.
Arriving on the bridge, Spock comments on Angel's thorough deception. Angel mocks him for his feeling of betrayal, adding that they considered him cute. Spock retorts that feelings were not his concern, only the safety of the Enterprise and her crew, something Angel finds impressive even without Kolnar. Chapel asks about the real Dr. Aspen, and Angel nonchalantly mentions they were still wandering the uninhabited planet the Squall had dumped them on. The colonists were a fake, a deception to lure the Enterprise into the Squall's trap, which they had to take some of the blame for. The pirates test out the ship's phasers, impressed with the firepower. Spock asks why he and the crew were still needed alive if all Angel wanted was the Enterprise. But Angel admits that they had not only come for the Enterprise, but Spock himself as well. Spock makes clear he will not give any information, but Angel shrugs that off, saying they only needed Spock to keep being him.
Yeah, a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, a little heavy-handed. Yeah.
It's funny too, like she already saw like what the weapons on board like do when they
Yeah.
blow up those things. And then she gets like all excited about shooting the phasers out in empty space. It's like, wow, these things are strong. It's like, how do you know you didn't shoot anything? Oh well. It's fun. I kind of hate and also kind of like how as soon as she did that switch, she sits in the captain chair and she's like a totally different, like now she's like a maniacal.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, but it's also kind of like, yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like how she kind of can just be herself now.
Yeah. But it also shows just how good not the actor, just like how good the person, like this Angel person is at like basically manipulating people. Enkesh Katan Katil T'Pring continues to observe the work of those in her charge when she is approached by Stan, who informs her that there is a subspace transmission coming from the Enterprise. It is Angel, who confesses that they find T'Pring attractive for a prison guard. T'Pring corrects them by saying it was a rehabilitation center, not a prison, but Angel shrugs off the semantics and mentions that they have Spock prisoner, dramatically saying that they believe she knew him. Angel finds it convenient given that a Vulcan associate of theirs, Xavierus, is being held at Enkesh Katan Katil. They propose a trade, Vulcan for Vulcan. T'Pring points out that should she agree to such a trade, the Vulcan High Council would revoke her position. She would face criminal charges and her family would be disgraced. Angel retorts that she was bound to Spock by ritual engagement and also had responsibilities to him. She could choose to either endure the stigma of losing a prisoner or allow her one true love and one of Vulcan's favored sons to die. T'Pring makes clear she will not allow intimidation to influence her decisions, but Angel gives her a set of coordinates anyways, where she will meet with the Enterprise on the edge of the Federation space to make the exchange. They add a final threat. If T'Pring involves the Federation, she would not have a fiance left to rescue. After closing the channel, Angel orders a course set. Chapel protests, as T'Pring had made clear she wouldn't go through with it, but Angel is confident she will. Spock reminds Angel that Vulcans were not influenced by emotions, but Angel mocks him by saying that they had influenced him by appealing to emotions most of that day. With the sick colonists and the tragic love lost in battle, Story's emotions had gotten him to do exactly what Angel wanted. They admit they're not sure whether it was because he was part Vulcan, part human, or both, but asks to let them know when he figures it out. Spock points out the irony of Angel questioning his identity, but Angel corrects him by saying that while they had fudged a detail or two, they had never lied. They had indeed lost the man they loved, but to a Vulcan prison rather than battle. Chapel incredulously asks whether Angel had hijacked a Federation ship and was attempting to blackmail Vulcans simply for love. Angel replies that love was the only thing that made the cold loneliness of space bearable, and could see in Chapel's rock-hard eyes that she knew that too. That, they firmly believe, is why T'Pring will make the deal. To me, this scene is a mix between really interesting and good and like too much.
Yeah, that's true. Kind of keeps like beating you over the head with it a little bit, you know.
A little bit, yeah. Okay, back on the Squall as the pirates serve Remy's gruel to the Enterprise. Remy's voice sounds over the intercom, saying that they were headed to the Kovat colony to sell cargo to the Klingons. Aloud, Pike asks if Remy had what it really took to negotiate with the Klingons. Una adds that he couldn't make a decent gruel, and Mbenga adds his medical opinion that he saw signs of malnourishment in the crew. Pike thinks that since he was the captain, they had to do what he said. The female pirate corrects him by saying Remy was not the captain. Taking this information in, Una still goes forward, asking that if Remy unilaterally changed plans like this, who else he would turn on, especially if things went south with the Klingons. The pirate is confident she can take care of herself, but Pike asks about the rest of the crew. She was the only one thinking about the rest of them, which made her captain material in his book. The pirate points out that Remy has friends, but Ortegas is not so sure, having tasted his cooking. Pike is sure she has friends too, and if she needed them, he had a few more to offer, gesturing to himself and the crew. The pirate thinks this over for a moment before telling them to eat their gruel before walking away. Pike and Una are confident they're getting through, just like Alpha Braga 4. Another scene where it's like, I've seen this 1,000 times, where they're just talking, and then their talking results in the person changing their mind, and yeah.
It's also funny too that like they're doing this, and then like as soon as the person like walks away, they're like, what an idiot.
Sure.
It's like they're like still like within earshot because they're still talking loud. They're like,
Right.
These people are so gonna fall for this.
Yeah, or just like, oh yeah, got him. And then it's like, what was that? Nothing.
Got him.
Nothing.
Huh? No, just eating. Just eating.
Delicious. Yum.
What a bunch of fools. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
A Vulcan cruiser arrives at the coordinates for the rendezvous with the Enterprise. Angel orders the channel open and compliments T'Pring on making a logical decision before telling her to prepare the transporter to trade lovers, even if theirs doesn't care about logic. Spock is able to deduce who the prisoner is and tells T'Pring not to go through with it, or to allow the pirates to keep the Enterprise. He urges her to destroy the ship. Angel shoots him down with their phaser and warns T'Pring that if Xavierus was not beamed aboard in 10 minutes, the next shot would be set to kill.
Oh no, that's bad.
Oh, I've seen this before.
So do you think T'Pring even had that dude on the ship?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I think she was just going to be there and be like, oh yeah, okay, and then beam over a whole bunch of like Vulcan High Council like security guards or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
because it wasn't like I don't think she showed up like in a shuttle. I think she showed up like in a full, like, as I said, a Vulcan cruiser. So it's like, there's no way she's piloting that thing herself. Like, there's no way she has that much pull to be like, hey, can I take this ship absolutely by myself? They'd be like, why? To the edge of Federation. No reason. Yeah, I don't think so. As Spock regains consciousness, Chapel warns him not to sit up too quickly, but he manages to rise to his feet anyway. T'Pring asks if Spock will not be harmed if she arranges Xavierus's safe transport. And Angel gives her their word. Spock tells Chapel in a low tone that he apologizes for any liberties he's about to take and asks her to follow his lead. Louder, he tells T'Pring that she was right, that he has given in to his human side far more than he wished to admit. T'Pring thinks Spock is not communicating effectively. As he tries to explain about himself in Chapel, she sees what he is doing and speaks up to confess to having an affair with Spock. Angel is not buying it, believing it a ruse to convince T'Pring not to make the transfer. Spock is lost for words for a moment before finally kissing Chapel to prove his love for her. T'Pring appears convinced, and Angel offers to let her beam aboard to straighten things out. T'Pring thinks, in light of the information, it was only logical to break their mating bond, and both ultimately do so in ritual fashion. How do you feel about the scene?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where like that like all three parties involved like know that it's a ruse.
Right.
Like Angel knows it's crap and T'Pring knows it's not true, and
Right.
the only person that really gets hurt is Chapel, honestly.
Right. The thing for me is, okay, whatever. They're going to keep pushing the Spock and Chapel thing, whatever. But to me, if Angel thinks this is a ruse, which they adamantly keep showing that they're like not falling for it,
Yeah.
just stun Spock again, like shoot him again.
Yeah.
It's like the first time he tried to intervene with the transfer, they shot him, and then now he's doing it again, like shoot him again. It just didn't make any sense for Angel to sit there and just be like, oh well, this is stupid. Oh well,
This
isn't
is
going
ridiculous. Well, why would she even let him get up and like talk anyway?
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, yeah, let him carry on.
Yeah.
Let him
Oh, it
talk.
seems like he's not. It seems like he's making the prison transfer not happen. I'll let that keep happening. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's not my whole mission or goal here of taking the
Right.
Enterprise.
The whole thing was like you have 10 minutes to beam him aboard, and then I was like, yeah, but I'll let Spock talk to you for a little bit. Like it'll be fine. I'm sure it couldn't go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Even to the point where she's like, "Are you really T'Pring? Are you really believing this junk?" It's like, nah. Continue. Continue.
So this is the part. It says Angel's exasperated and orders their crew to destroy T'Pring's ship, but the weapons and shields are suddenly locked down. Just as a Serene Squall comes out of warp and opens fire on them, the Squall hails them. Pike is at the helm, with Una and Ortegas at the consoles in front of him. I'm only going to tell you this once, he tells Angel. Get the heck out of my chair. Una was
I love that.
Una was able to activate a backdoor code to disable the ship's defensive systems, and Pike has Ortega's fire to disable the impulse thrusters, but gently. The weapons fire apparently does a bit more than gently, but Ortega sarcastically asks what firing gently even meant. When Pike shows up on the screen, I was like, okay, here it comes. What's his one line going to be?
Yeah, I'm only gonna say this once. Yeah, I really did like that.
Yeah,
it was very like,
yeah,
nice.
And I also liked his acting where he was like he has to make the decision to shoot at the Enterprise and he doesn't want to because it's his ship.
Yeah.
Just like, okay,
It's
shoot
like,
it.
blow up the warp core, I guess. Yeah. Disengage them, but like, not like crazy because we're gonna have to fix it,
Right, exactly.
I think this was the one time that like Ortega made me laugh too, like when she shoots the thing. First of all, she shoots like 4 missiles at the freaking thing. And he's like, what did I do? She's like, how do you even shoot a torpedo like lightly? I don't even understand what that means. Like that's true. Yeah, you can't like shoot the ship.
Yeah,
gently.
I did laugh when she said that too. Like, what does that even really mean? Like, okay, like shoot them gently.
Her one-liners can be funny. It's just sometimes the writing it has to be more.
Yeah, don't you feel like if she didn't have the third date thing in the beginning?
Yes. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And it was just like she made the thing about the comment about the food in the cage. Like, yeah, are you sure he's got friends? Because this is pretty gross.
Yeah.
And then this
exactly
would have been just enough. Like her like little smarmy stuff would have been fine. But when it gets to this point, it's like, well, that is funny, but the rest of it is just like it's too much. It's just too much.
Yeah. You know what it is? To me, it's talking back to Pike is what makes it not funny to me.
Yeah.
I I don't know, but I mean, honestly, though, this was funny, and this was kind of her talking back to Pike a little bit.
Yeah.
But this is a situation like she can't like help. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So the whole like, oh, well, how close are you expecting me to get? Like, that's a situation where like you don't need to talk.
Right.
But Pike saying like, yeah, just blow up the Enterprise, but not that hard. And then she shoots it, and it's like, well, I don't understand what you wanted me to do. You know what you're asking for is impossible, right? Like,
right. Exactly.
like that's funny. I don't know. So sometimes she is funny.
Yeah, she definitely has good one-liners here and there. It's just too many of them.
Yeah. That's the thing is like I don't want to come across as like I'm always hating on her. Like this is a good example of like this was funny. Like this I genuinely thought was funny.
Yeah, I agree. The Enterprise has lost both impulse and warp power, and Spock believes the logical decision would be to surrender. Angel thinks there is more to life than logic, and suspects Spock does as well. They admit that for what it was worth, they did enjoy meeting Spock, as Xavierus talked often about him. They urged him not to need to be either Vulcan or human, which they consider a false choice. The question wasn't what he was, but who. Before pulling the pendant from under their collar and activating an internal transporter, their ship, the small craft tailing the Enterprise, jumps to warp. As Ortegas is left wondering what happened, Pike hails the Enterprise and asks for an update. Spock is now in the captain's chair, reporting he is preparing to beam the crew back. Just then, weapons fired narrowly misses Pike's head, and he asks if Spock could get them off the bridge first. Una explains they had taken the bridge a little prematurely.
Yeah. So a couple things. So this is like the reveal that I was talking about earlier that I really liked at the end.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, you know, you see them and they're on the bridge, right? And it's like they got the thing under control.
Yeah.
And they do all this stuff, and then finally it shows like behind them, it's all like they got the gate all boarded up, and they're trying to break it down the whole time.
People like climbing, and
like I love that. It was so funny. So is that like personal transporter thing always been a thing, or is that just new? Because that was very weird to me.
Oh, you mean like, is it possible for people to have like personal transporters?
Yeah.
No,
like
no.
The way
It's weird that it's like really small as a pendant, but at the same time,
because it's this necklace. Yeah, I didn't understand. Like she takes this necklace out and she hits it, and it's like she beams away, and I was like, that's kind of weird.
I think what you're supposed to be led to believe, because having like personal like a transporter thing is not super radical, but I think what it's supposed to be is more like that ship was in
such close proximity,
and she could press this button, kind of like a garage door opener, like press this button and it activated the computer on the ship, and the computer knows to locate that pendant or her biosigns and then beam her onto the ship.
So that I can get behind.
Yeah,
which is one of those things I've never seen so far, and it was like that seems very convenient, like for this episode, for her to like
totally understand what you mean. Yeah,
get out of there.
It's not a thing that frequently happens in Star Trek, but it is more than once. It's not like she does it and nobody else ever does it in Star Trek. So okay, Captain's Log supplemental. Starfleet has taken the Serene Squall and its colorful crew into custody, although the whereabouts of Captain Angel remain unknown. Back aboard the Enterprise, now restored to full power, Pike puts on an exaggerated pirate's accent, saying if they ever caught up to Angel, they should make them walk the plank. Una pleads with her captain to please stop, while Ortega struggles not to laugh.
I did kind of like that. I thought that was pretty funny. How can you not, right? You're talking about pirates.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. Also him like really hamming it up to say
I always think about stuff like that, like you're the actor on the set, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, action, and you're like, okay. I mean, you know how like sometimes like when we get talking and then we go to like start our episode, like and we're like, okay, all right, let's see, how do we start this thing? So now you're an actor on set, and they're like, action, and you got to be like, next time we see her, we'll make her walk the flank. It's like, it's so awkward. It would be so awkward.
It has to be. It has to be.
Like everybody's just sitting there, and you're like, okay, I got to act like this stupid pirate here,
And then also, like, everybody around you can't break, right? Because he's being ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be pretty good.
So let me do it. Let me just do it to you, and then you can chastise me later.
Nice.
So, what is a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
No, matey, it's the C. Doesn't matter what you say, because if you knew it was the C, I say no, matey, it's R. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the answer is. It's always the other. Yeah.
Oh boy,
It's a terrible joke.
It's good. No, I liked it. No,
Yeah.
that was well worth it.
That was well worth it. Should I leave it in the episode? That's the real question.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If you're listening, put your favorite letter in the comments.
Yeah, it's gonna be
What's your favorite pirate letter?
press F to pay respects, right? Yeah.
Oh man, it's good.
In his quarters, Spock is in meditation when T'Pring enters. He admits he was not sure she would come, and she replies that she was in the vicinity. He apologizes for the incident with Chapel on the bridge. T'Pring admits it was an impressive gambit to protect both her reputation and her patient's safety. Spock is surprised she knew it was a ruse, and T'Pring thinks he couldn't actually have feelings for Chapel, thinking it part of a greater plan. She had been right, and was also right about his human side being a source of strength, believing that he could never have sold the kiss with Chapel without it. Spock concedes she knows him well, as she kisses him, suggesting they perform a rebonding ritual, which she agrees is logical.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those lines too, where it was like, "Oh, I knew that wasn't a thing. That couldn't possibly be a thing."
Yeah,
Like, it probably
right.
could. It probably could be a thing.
No.
No, that's illogical.
I can't wait for you to watch. I think it was this past week's episode of season 2. It's very funny. It's very, very funny. I laughed a lot out loud.
Oh, really?
And it deals with Spock and T'Pring, and it's really good. So,
Oh, cool.
okay. Later in sickbay, Spock comes down to thank Chapel for her help and applaud the performance on the bridge. Chapel brusquely answers that lying was not his strong suit, so she did what he could, and doesn't feel the need to talk about it. Spock thought that as a human, she would want to discuss her feelings. Chapel appears to be conflicted, but says that she likes Vulcans and knows where she stands with Spock, knowing he would not chase another woman while he had a girlfriend. So she knows for certain there were no feelings between them. Spock quietly replies he is glad to hear that, and that she also knew him well, both considering the other a good friend. Before he leaves, Chapel asks about what he said on the bridge, about knowing the identity of the prisoner Angel wanted release. Spock remembers some of the things Angel had said reminded him of a certain other Vulcan, a child of Sarek born out of wedlock who, though full Vulcan, had rejected the teachings of logic, becoming a Vatash Katur. Chapel remembers that Sarek was also Spock's father, and Spock confirms this, believing that Xavierus was an assumed name, and that the prisoner in question was someone he was told to avoid at all costs. His own half-brother, Simon.
Oh my God.
So, here is the thing I'll tell you, because we're not going to watch the movie.
Yeah. It
Uh,
doesn't matter because it's a different timeline.
no. So, so the show happens, blah, 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 show.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the 5th Star Trek movie comes out. And it's like, oh, it's this thing and blah, blah, blah. And you meet this Vulcan who laughs and he smiles and he has emotions. And they're like, who is this person? And Spock knows who it is in the movie, and then in the movie, it's revealed it's his half brother Cybok. And Kirk's like, "You have a half brother?" Like everybody on the Enterprise is like, "What do you mean you have a half brother? You've never talked about this thing."
I'm
And
not
many of
supposed
the yeah, and many of the fans were like, "How convenient that, of course, Spock has like a nobody's ever talked about thing." So
Well, yeah.
this was Strange New World's nice way of basically introducing Cybok before the movies did, so that when you see the movie, it's like, well, yeah, of course we know about Cybok as the audience. So
Yeah, it was
Cybok is
cool.
a thing, and it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I also remember like the evil Spock with the beard.
Yeah, evil Spock with the beard is different, but yeah,
Isn't he like mirror
he's a
world
mirror
or something?
universe.
Nice. Into the mirror darkly, that kind of thing.
Very, very similar. Yep.
Which I haven't seen yet. Thank you.
Wink.
And now it doesn't even matter.
I think it does a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, so finally, back on Ankesh Katan Katil, T'Pring and Stan enter Cybok's cell. He is looking out the window at the landscape beyond and turns his head slightly on hearing their approach. Cybok!
Spock's brother, Locke. Pretty good.
So that was episode 7, The Serene Squall.
Yay.
Yay. So now we get to do the thing that everybody waits
Oh my
for
God.
the whole episode.
I literally forget about it.
Every single
Until
time.
you say it, I was like, frick.
We're going to do this thing.
Caleb.
Yay. I prepared
man.
so well.
I'm so excited. So, who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award for being most forgettable in this episode?
You know what? It's funny. I'm actually going to say Hammer.
Okay.
Where's he been? What's he
Where's
doing?
that guy?
Yeah. I mean, they literally had to fight their way and sneak into engineering. Nobody from engineering was even in there. So
No.
what's up with that?
They got him real fast and got him out real fast.
I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
He wasn't even in the cage. I mean, he just wasn't there. I guess like you wouldn't want to put all the makeup on to have him be in like 3 scenes, you know?
I guess.
So that I can see.
Maybe he was getting spaghetti.
Probably.
Okay, who gets the Trip Tucker Award as the MVP of the episode?
Pike,
Okay.
as always.
As
Who else would get it?
always.
Obviously the captain.
Captain.
He did so much, you know. He had to cook.
Yeah.
He had to, you know, do the mutiny.
Yeah. Smooth talk, and then yeah.
Yeah, he got tortured. I mean, come on.
It was good.
He's always the MVP.
What gets the Shran Award is the best action sequence.
I really like when Spock takes everybody out that storms their way to the
Oh.
bridge.
Yeah. That is a really good scene, actually.
I like seeing Spock do stuff, you know.
Yeah, let the emotion wall go down a little bit, and then
Yeah.
what gets the NX Award is some sweet ship stuff.
The Jerry stairs. What did you call
Oh,
it?
the Jeffrey tube.
Yeah, Jeffrey too. Jerry stairs.
I love the Jeffrey stairs. Yeah, the Jeffrey's tube.
Jeffrey's tube was cool.
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
What gets the Porthos Award as being the cheesiest?
The kiss heard round the world.
See, just
That was a
the
little
fact
cheesy.
that they kissed, or like the whole
Yeah.
scene?
That whole thing to me
Gotcha.
kind of, like you said, like Spock shouldn't even have been talking to Pring on the thing. Like he should have been phased, and
Yeah.
like it wouldn't even have happened, you know. To even get to the
Sure.
point where they kiss is a little ridiculous.
That's a good point. Yeah. I don't know what I would have picked, but that's probably the one that's a good one to pick. Now we're down to it. The last one. What gets the Enterprise Award as the best scene?
I like Pike. I'm telling her to get out of his chair.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that has been what Caleb has thought. So write in the comments what you thought of this episode. Put down below if you liked them mentioning Cybok. Did you like Angel? Did you think the Spock and Chapel thing was just as foolish? But as to next week we'll be covering episode 8 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds with the episode entitled The Elysium Kingdom. I'll be interested to see what Caleb thinks of that episode. I'm not going to give anything away, but I am genuinely interested in what he thinks.
Because it sucks.
I'm not saying that. So, we don't want to fill any opinions in your mind so that you're swayed in any way. As always, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Like the video if you liked it. Dislike it if you disliked it. Subscribe to stay with us as we go through this weekly. Ring the bell for notifications so that when it comes out on Sundays, you see it and don't miss it. And go over to Caleb's channel and give him a like, give him a subscribe, give him a bell notification ringing. This comes out on Sunday the 23rd. So a couple days ago, today as we film it, Dragon Ball came out.
Oh, yeah.
Go,
Wednesday.
Yeah. So today's the 19th. So it came out. So it's on his channel. It's been there. Go back and watch it. It's just like this, where we talk about things we're going through it chronologically, Dragon Ball, but over on his channel. And that just came out. So that's nice, good content. I know, maybe Star Trek and Dragon Ball don't necessarily overlap too much in the same stuff. But I'll tell you this, as a Star Trek fan, it's fun to watch. It's interesting. And it has some interesting beats and comedy in it that are actually pretty rewarding. So head over there.
They're both about exploration and aliens. So
and aliens, yeah. And there's always a character that says one too many one-liners and it gets old too quickly.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We appreciate you all watching. And stay tuned for next week. Okay, until next time, computer end program. See ya. The Retrek Review is a Daystrom Holodeck podcast produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props. Hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur. Edited by Will Wilbur. Our intro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. Title card art created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art created by Adri Wilbur of Love by the Letters. Synopsis and written plot provided by memory-alpha.fandom.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and the Daystrom Holodeck on Instagram and on YouTube. Thanks for watching.